Welcome to the January 4th, 2010 edition of Todd Graham's Daily Vlog. Today was dedicated to professional wrestling. For the first time since 2001, the two biggest wrestling promotions in the country went head-to-head on Monday night. TNA is trying to get ratings, is trying to up their game, trying to make their show better, and they think they're going to do it with Hulk Hogan running the ship. Hulk Hogan is arguably the greatest name in professional wrestling history. To combat this, Raw got Bret the Hitman Hart, who hasn't been seen on Monday Night Raw in 12 years. What I'm about to do is take a look at both shows and see who actually won tonight. Let me start what I shouldn't be starting because this is just one man's opinion, but let's start the great debate. Fuck! TNA decided to do something different tonight. Besides the fact that they're on Monday nights, they decided to go an hour ahead of Raw. They're going to do a 3-hour special that started at 8 o'clock, where Raw starts at 9. And what they were planning on doing was trying to captivate the audience watching Impact so that they would be less likely to flip the channels come 9 o'clock. What I am about to review is the 1 hour that TNA Impact went unopposed by the WWE. The first thing you saw in TNA was an X Division Asylum match. A handful of wrestlers in the lightweight division, which is basically what the X Division is. And the goal for the match is to climb up this cage and through the open top of this domed structure. Very huge, very dangerous looking. It was very sloppy. And the finish? A disqualification. A match where 8 guys are fighting inside of a cage, and the match ends on a disqualification. And if that weren't bad enough, after the match, Jeff Hardy returns to TNA, completely destroying everything that the WWE did for him. Last time we saw Jeff, he was fighting for the World Heavyweight Championship on SmackDown against CM Punk inside of a cage. Big spot. Next time we see Jeff, he's immediately demoted to mid-card. Running unopposed, TNA loses a point. Which means WWE gets a point. Which is kind of funny, because on USA Network at this time is NCIS. So technically, NCIS gets a point. Next match on the TNA show to show off what TNA is to potential new viewers is they give us a Knockouts Championship match. Tara, aka Victoria from the WWE, takes on my future wife, ODB, for the Knockouts Championship. Gotta say something about these ladies. These ladies, these Knockouts, they are wrestlers. Much better than any diva has ever been. So a point for TNA. During the finish, ODB rolled up Tara and pulled her tights, and you could see Tara's ass crack. And they censored it. They cut to a shot of the asylum. The Steel Asylum that happened like 10 minutes ago. So I guess TNA is trying to avoid, stuff like that, nudity. The next thing we see, Ric Flair gets out of a limo and debuts on TNA television. What a spit in the face to Shawn Michaels. But hey, what can I say? It's Ric Flair. Following this was a set of promos. One featuring the beautiful people, or the not so beautiful people. The fake-breasted blondes people. And they were starting a strip poker game. And they basically implied that by the end of it, one of them was going to be naked. But of course, this would be an okay concept on Spike TV if it weren't for the fact that they censored out Tara's ass crack fucking 20 minutes ago. So there's no way these girls are getting even close to naked. And then to follow this, they have Bobby Lashley do a promo, rather, Bobby Lashley's wife, do a promo where she basically says Bobby wants to leave TNA and pursue MMA. Talk about shitting on the fucking product. Once again, running unopposed, NCIS gets another fucking point. Rolling over NCIS's points to WWE Raw, starting at the head-to-head, both of these shows are going in even, and TNA had a whole fucking hour to make sure that wasn't the case. Oh well. Let's see what happens next. But let's start with 9 p.m., the beginning of WWE Raw and the beginning of the second hour of TNA Impact. On TNA, Hulk Hogan makes his TNA Impact debut. During the Impact debut, Sean Waltman, otherwise known as X-Pac, or Six, or the 1-2-3 Kid, or Six-Pac, or convict number 30152, and his fat drunk buddy Scott Hall hop the guardrail and jump into the ring. It looks like we're going to have an NWO reunion. And then Kevin Nash comes out. And it's the first time these guys have all been together in years. And then they start to argue. And we got NWO, the 4 main members. And then fucking Eric Bischoff comes out. And we got all the key players from the NWO. And Sting is up in the rafters. Just like back in 1996-97 when Sting and Hogan were getting ready to have that huge match. Jesus, how's Raw going to compete with this? On Raw, Bret Hart. And that's all I really need to fucking say. He reconciled with Shawn Michaels, which was fucking ridiculous because it was great to see after all these years. But all I had to say was Bret Hart, and it took the steam right out of Hulk Hogan and the NWO. Just saying. All right. Fuck! Our next competition for ratings here, as far as I'm concerned, on TNA, the Knockouts Tag Team titles were on the line as the defending champions Sarita and Taylor Wilde took on that big, beautiful woman, Amazing Kong, and her partner, the Japanese Hamada. Hamada and Awesome Kong would go on to win the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. But let's take a look what was on Raw. On Raw, we have a Vince promo where he's caught up with by an interviewer, and he basically says, I didn't hear anything Bret said. I was in a meeting. Good storyline setup. And then the match was Maurice versus Brie Bella in the first of several matches to decide the new Divas champion because Melina got hurt. Point goes to TNA. Like I said, I'll take the Knockouts over the Divas any day. At about 9:30 on TNA, we see the second strip poker segment featuring the debuting Val Venus wearing nothing but a towel. Also during this particular moment, we've got Mick Foley trying to get into the building and him being refused. Wasn't he a power character on this show last week? And the Nasty Boys try to get in. Hogan's buddies, the Nasty Boys. Also during this time, we see Raven and Stevie Richards, two of my favorite ECW people, taking on Super Mex Hernandez and Morgan. I'm sorry, I forget the fucking guy's first name because he's stupid. The finish came in about a minute and a half, and it was botched. Over on Raw, we see Jack Swagger, MVP, Mark Henry, and Carlito with Miz doing commentary. The winner of this match goes on to get a shot at the United States title. Now, as much as I do not like seeing these matches constantly, because you see these same 4 fucking guys, I gotta give it to Raw. Because it may have been the same shit you've seen all over again, but they've got it right. On TNA, we see Pope D'Angelo Dinero, a.k.a. Elijah Burke, interacting with Christy Hemme, the balding redhead who won the Divas contest. And the interview was interrupted by the debuting Orlando Jordan. You remember him, right? Well, me neither. And after that, we get Desmond Wolfe taking on Pope D'Angelo Dinero in a pretty good match. I'm a big fan of Nigel McGuinness. What can I say? And they show a shot of Jarrett showing up at the building, the founder of TNA. And on WWE Raw, Chris Jericho and Bret Hart do a promo, where basically Bret Hart shits all over the theory that Jericho trained with Stu Hart. And following that, DX, Santino Marella, and Hornswoggle shill some shit. Sorry. Gonna have to give it to TNA. I'm gonna choose good wrestling every time. Alright, at about 9:50, 10 o'clock on TNA Impact, we have Rhino being attacked and Jeff Jarrett coming out to the ring. Rhino is supposed to wrestle Abyss in a barbed wire match later on in the show. Just so you know. And then AJ Styles and Eric Bischoff have a promo, where Eric Bischoff says AJ is going to wrestle Kurt Angle instead of at the pay-per-view tonight on TNA Impact. And then Jarrett gets put in his place by Hulk Hogan and basically pissed on. Founder of TNA. And over on Raw, DX versus Jericho. Now, there was some backstage stuff with Vince and Randy Orton and the Legacy. That wasn't very important. And honestly, I'm getting real fucking tired of seeing DX versus Jericho. But I gotta give it to Raw, because, once again, you do it all the time, eventually you're gonna get it right, especially when there's bullshit going on the other show. Let's talk about around 10:15. On TNA Impact, Jeff Hardy is painting a picture backstage. Ain't that nice? And then Abyss takes on replacement for Rhino, Samoa Joe. But much to my dismay, no fucking barbed wire. However, Samoa Joe came out looking like Samoa Joe. And he actually wrestled like Samoa Joe. Not this Nation of Flatulence character that he's been doing for the last little while. After that, we see Eric Bischoff arguing with Bobby Lashley's wife. Eric Bischoff really doesn't give a shit what she thinks. Beer Money is now being jumped, and Bubba the Love Sponge is trying to get on TV. After that, we see the Nasty Boys enter the TNA arena. And then we see Kurt Angle put over AJ Styles on a promo. And then we see we see Jeff Hardy and Shannon Moore leaving the building with envelopes. Can't imagine what's in them. Over on Raw, Sheamus versus Evan Bourne, where if Evan Bourne wins the match, he wrestles Sheamus for the title at the Royal Rumble. Yeah, that'll put some asses in the seats. And then we see a tribute graphic for Dr. Death Steve Williams. For Dr. Death, you will be missed. And they also air the Bret Hart package from the opening of the show. Same fucking package. Gotta give it to TNA. Because, I mean, I love Samoa Joe. I don't necessarily like Abyss, but when Jeff Hardy and Shannon Moore left the building with those envelopes, I kind of had a feeling there were drugs in them, and that makes me giggle. And at about 10:30, on TNA Impact, the Nasty Boys trash Team 3D's locker room. Honestly, I'd like to see the Nasty Boys versus Team 3D. Two of the stiffest asshole tag teams in the history of wrestling going head to head. Great fucking idea. I don't see the Nasty Boys doing anything after that though. And then right after that, Kurt Angle versus AJ Styles. These two can't have a bad match. These two guys are just too fucking good. During the match, however, the masked man that has been attacking AJ Styles ran into the ring and attacked AJ Styles. Angle kicked him out of the ring, and rather than having the match end in a disqualification, in what seemed like a potential shoot to the WWE for giving a main event pay-per-view match on TV and having it end in a DQ, Angle called off the disqualification, helped AJ up, and the match continued. The match was incredible. On Raw, we got to see Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston. Again. And Randy Orton won the match. Again. Gotta give it to TNA. Finally, in the final segment of both shows, on TNA, Mick Foley finally gets into the building. And he goes looking for Hulk Hogan. And he walks into Hogan's office, and Eric Bischoff is sitting there. And Foley and Bischoff are looking face to face. And Foley says, I'll never work. I said I didn't mind working for Hogan. I didn't mind working for Dixie. But I said to myself a long time ago, I'd never work for Eric Bischoff again. Eric Bischoff laughed at him. Mick said, I'm going to knock your fucking teeth down your throat. And then the NWO stomped a fucking mud hole in him. Hulk Hogan walked in at the end, and it made it seem like maybe he didn't have anything to do with it. But maybe we'll find out next week. And on Raw, Bret Hart, and that's all I gotta fucking say. Bret Hart had a face-off with Vince McMahon that seemed like it was going to turn out pretty good. Stu Hart is now going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And before Vince left, he kicked Bret Hart in the nuts, left him laying. So we know where this is going. So, with that being said, the score is really close. So I'm gonna have to make an opinion on here. I'm gonna have to give tonight to the clear-cut winner, MMA. Nothing that happened on either of these shows is really going to deter how popular mixed martial arts is. And with that, good night.